to the thefogvlog.
Hey, what's up, you guys? Thanks for tuning in. And if you've clicked on this video, you know we're going to be talking about Cap Sweet Cream. And as we normally do, we're going to talk about market share first, then we're going to talk about some notes, and then Daniel will finish off with application. So I'll just quickly share my screen and we'll start looking at ELR and look at the competitor sweet creams out there. Okay, just sharing my screen. I've done a search here on Cap Sweet Cream or Sweet Cream per se, and what you can see right at the top, we've got TFA Sweet Cream at 16,000, or excuse me, 167,000. Then we've got Cap Sweet Cream at 82,000, and then we've got the DX version of TFA at 34,000. And then Sweet Cream Flavor West at 17,000. That pretty much, gives you a good indication of what the market share is. But let's look at the difference when we look at all the flavors. So just switching on over to all the flavors. So at the top, we have got TFA Sweet Cream, and then, close following it, actually, Cap Sweet Cream. So, there's a little bit of difference here between the two systems. So it looks like the people on all the flavors are using Cap Sweet Cream a little bit more if you look at the ratio between TFA and Cap Sweet Cream, recipe used. Then right underneath it, we have got Flavor West Sweet Cream, and then we've got Flavora Sweet Cream, and then we've got TFA DX Sweet Cream under that. So yeah, that, gives you an idea of the market share of these products, and specifically talking about sweet cream. So Richard, take us away with the single flavor testing. Thanks.
Right, in order to do the flavor notes for Capella Sweet Cream, I decided not to mix it up on its own, but rather to mix up a tester and then testers as well for its main market rivals, those being the TFA Sweet Cream and also the Flavor West Sweet Cream. So I mixed them all up at 3%, which is higher than you'll be using them in a mix, but it gives a good indication of how the flavor stands on its own. Starting with the Capella, off the shake I got quite a dark sweetness, almost like a condensed milk caramelized type of sweetness that sits mainly in the base and the mid notes of the flavor. I found that over the course of the steep, that sweetness reduces somewhat. After a week or 8 days or so, you're left with something that is not as overtly sweet. That sweetness does get toned down. It also loses some of that sort of caramel condensed milk vibe and becomes more a type of generic sweetness, although it does retain a little bit of that character of being a darker type of sweetness. You would imagine this as being a sort of beige type of sweetness rather than a white sugar sweetness. It does have a good, thick, dense texture. It's what I'm looking for from a cream. And after the steep, it settles into what I would consider to be a very workable flavor. That sweetness level is good. It's a pleasing type of sweetness, and it does give you that thickening and sweetening that you would want from a sweet cream. There are no real off notes. Apparently it does get quite cheesy and funky if you lift it up too high, but certainly at the 3% that I tested it at, there are no off notes in it. Moving now to its biggest rival, which is the TFA Sweet Cream. Also tested this at 3%. Off the shake, I got a very toppy cream. It wasn't very sweet, and there was a chemical note, but right up in the top notes of the flavor. Over a week or so, it settled down. That sweetness bloomed, it remains quite a subtle type of sweetness. It is mostly, I would say, a white sugar type of sweetness, but not totally. So it comes through quite subtly. Nevertheless, that sweetness does still sit predominantly in the mid and higher notes of the flavor. There's also, off the shake, there's a slightly funky chemical note, which is again up in the top notes. That kind of steeps out. It's not that noticeable after a week, but I think that if you use it too high, and 3% is too high, it probably still will be discernible. But if you keep it down around the 1.5, 2% range, I'm sure that will be manageable. Moving on to the Flavor West. This for me was overtly the sweetest of the three, and it's also the most white sugary of the three. It tastes like cream that's just had a whole load of white sugar dumped into it. Off the shake, I noticed that sweetness is very linear. It cuts through all levels of the flavor. It goes from the base through the mid notes up into the top notes of the flavor, and that is retained after the steep. It's a cream that gives you sweetness throughout the flavor, just this linear central band of flavor, and it is quite a sort of sugary flavor. Sorry, I'll pick up there. Neither the TFA nor the Flavor West is as dense as the Capella, and they both leave somewhat of a mouth coating after the exhale. The TFA, it's more of a sugary type of coating. It's not entirely pleasant. I wouldn't say it's off, but it's not really the type of mouth coating that I would be looking for. But again, that's probably going to reduce if you use it at a lower level. For the Flavor West, it's not so much a sugary coating as a slightly sour chemical note that remains in your mouth after the exhale. Again, that is probably going to disappear when you mix it with other flavors, and also when you use it lower, as you would expect to do. So yeah, slight off notes in both the TFA and the FW, but certainly manageable off notes. Of the three, I find the Capella to be the most workable. It's what I want from a sweet cream. So it's certainly the first of the sweet creams that I would get, but I can see uses for both the TFA and the FW, and by all means I would consider getting all three of them for your stash.
In terms of application for Cap Sweet Cream, I can speak about how I use it and how I've seen other people using it. So for me, I use Cap Sweet Cream as sort of a dairy note helper. So adding dairy notes to creams to try and get like a more milky flavor versus more thick cream flavor. So where I've used it is something like a strawberry milk. In place of something like cream fresh or malted milk, I'll use sweet cream. I've used it in something like a cereal where you have milky notes that you want to come through, then Cap Sweet Cream is usually my go-to for that, in place of something like cream fresh. Cream fresh is probably quite close in terms of what it is, but sweet cream has got more of that warm dairy note to it, where cream fresh is more of a cream fresh. So the other use that goes well with it is if you crank it up really high, you get like a sour note, and it's not something that's always pleasant or something that people always want. But if you've got a cheesecake where you'd like to add like an authentic sour note to it, or even like a meringue, that sometimes the egg whites when cooked gets a bit of like a sour note to it along with that lemon, then you can use Cap Sweet Cream at like 2-3%. Then you don't get too much of that sour note, but you get enough of that notes to add sort of an authentic feel to the whole recipe. The way I've seen it used by other people is I've seen them use it to sort of emulsify fruits and add like mouthfeel to fruits, which is interesting because usually the go-to for that is cream fresh, where sweet cream will probably do exactly the same thing. Then I've seen it used in buttercream cakes. I've seen it used as for cheesecakes. Cheesecakes seem to be the majority, and for milky drinks like a bubblegum milkshake. I've also seen it with some peaches and creams, and I mean it's pretty much a nice canvas cream. Like use it as a base for stuff, and then you can add other creams. It doesn't have too many like vanilla notes or anything like that. It's just a plain old cream, really.
Hey guys, that pretty much wraps up the end of the show. Thank you for tuning in. Leave comments below of recipes that uses Cap sweet cream or any sweet cream for that matter that you vape that you really can recommend, or any notes that we didn't cover in the show. Leave those in the comments below. And yeah, thank you very much, guys. Also remember to follow us or South Africa specific DIY in Mixologist South Africa group on Facebook. And look in the description below for all the links if you want to support us or look at our profiles. Cheers.